Good evening. It's 7:01 p.m. on Monday, January 28th, and I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting to order. Mr. Guarino, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Oden,
Here.
Ms. Raymond,
Here.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
I'm here.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Present.
Mr. Guarino is here, Ms. Hohensie,
Present.
Ms. Timmons,
Here.
Ms. Porter,
Here.
Mr. Eid,
Here.
Ms. Scales,
Present.
other attendees, Dr. Mosley,
Here.
Dr. McKinney, Ms. Fitzpatrick,
Here.
Ms. O'Gara.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Mosher is joining us by telephone. Are you by yourself tonight, Mr. Mosher?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Could you read the prayer for us, Mr. Guarino? And Mr. Eid, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Yep. Can everyone please stand? Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty of managing the educational institutions of our beloved city. In our common endeavors, may we find a spirit of unity and understanding which will enable us to face our multiple problems with an objective mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, now on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? Yes, Ms. Hohensie.
The communications?
You would like to remove the communications from the consent agenda? Okay. Any other items? No? Then I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the communications.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, when you're ready, Mr. Guarino.
On the motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the communications, Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes, Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Porter.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you. Items removed from the consent agenda. Ms. Hohensie?
Yes, there's an email missing from Wednesday, January 16th, from Dr. Mosley, and the subject was the high school elections for school board rep.
Okay. Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you.
Kaufman, I apologize.
That's okay. So, and I believe it was January 11th, I sent an email to the board requesting a hearing, and that email is not here. And there is correspondence that I sent to the office as certified mail on the 14th, that Monday, that is also not included on this list. It's my understanding that it's not only email correspondence, but it's all correspondence received by the board. Hard copy is, snail mail or email.
Okay, 1 second. Is it your desire to move forward with approving the consent agenda, excuse me, approving the communications with the exception of those items?
I would like that they, if you're asking me, I would like that they be included.
Okay.
So the list can be complete, because this is, it should be right, the public has a right to know what the communications are, so I want it to be complete.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mosley, do you have any comment?
I believe I shared all the communication regarding
the election of these young, fine students here already with all of the board. So if there's any missing communication, I'd be more than happy to supply it to the entire board at the appropriate time. So probably I'll go back and do a research, and I'm not sure what email. I think it was pretty clear on my communication to the board, the matter regarding the elections.
Okay. Ms. Timmons?
No, Mr. Mosier, are you still there? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Timmons. So, Dr. Mosley, could you please review the consent agenda, and then we will, I've said it again, review the communications list, and then we will add this to our next agenda.
Certainly will.
Any objections? No?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Communication outside the consent agenda. Anyone? Nope. Okay. So now we're on to the public question comment period. Ordinarily, we limit this to items on this agenda. I am willing to entertain a motion to allow people to speak on items outside of this agenda, if that is the will of the board. Ms.
So
Owen?
moved.
Second.
I move to suspend the rules to allow public comment before the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Oden. So Ms. Oden has properly stated her motion.
Okay, on the motion to allow public comments, Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes, Ms. Hohensie,
Yes?
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries 9-0.
Right. Wonderful, thank you. So we do have a sign-up sheet. Anyone who has signed up is welcome to come down. If you have not signed up, please do so. So one at a time, we'll go.
Adam Marcoux, 4 Jewelry Lane. I'm president of the Nashua Teachers Union. I'd come up with a really clever way to tie my comments into something on the agenda, and now I don't have to.
You can go ahead and do that.
Oh, okay. So I noticed in my packet the agenda for the schedule for the budget committee, and it got me thinking, as you enter budget season, some things cross my mind. There's a lot to say, but this is what ended up on paper. So I'm curious to know if it would surprise any of you that one of our schools only has a school psychologist 1 day a week. Would it surprise you that some of our schools only have a school psychologist 2 days a week? Would it surprise you that in a district our size, we have 1 behaviorist? Would it surprise you that most of our elementary schools do not have a second full-time administrator? Would it surprise you that we have less than 5 social workers for over 1,000 students? Would it surprise you that some schools exceed the guidance counselor per pupil ratio, so they have to borrow a counselor from another school? Would it surprise you that we have schools with ELL kids with no ELL teacher? Would it surprise you that we have a student-teacher ratio for ELL of 60 kids to 1 teacher? Would it surprise you that our special education costs in-district and out-of-district placement are on the rise, but in-district we may not have the capacity with special ed teachers and paras? Would it surprise you that some of our classes have not had updated texts or materials? The number I was given through someone was 15 years for some of those courses. Would it surprise you that many teachers fund their classrooms for basic items like paper, pencils, standard things that we need for school? So it doesn't surprise me because I've lived it every day since 2008 when I started teaching. And my colleagues live it every day. And we need help Last year was the first budget presented by the school district that, I'm not going to say that you ignored the mayor's threshold, but you pushed the limit. The superintendent came forward with a budget that we all kind of laughed and said, oh yeah, that will never happen in Nashua. But you know what? He came forward with that budget and said, this is what we need for our school district to be successful. We need these funds. We have suffered long enough under a spending cap era that, listen, I pay taxes in this city, and I'm all about keeping spending reasonable. But I'm a teacher in this district. I have 3 kids in this district. I chose to live in this district because I believe in what we do in this district every day. And we need help. My colleagues and I need your help to go to the Board of Aldermen. We need the Board of Aldermen to help to address some of these things. What's changed the most in our district are our kids and their backgrounds and where they come from and what they bring to the table. That's not their fault. It's not their family's fault. It's the situation that they bring forward. What hasn't really changed is our budget. Yes, we have received funds and our budget has gone up, and we are grateful for that. But sometimes that's not enough. And we need to figure out how we're going to address this would you be surprised list, because while those are the things on there, there's probably 100 other things. And how do you pick what goes on the list and what doesn't go on the list? I was criticized last year by members because I didn't come up and support or defend anything in the budget. Well, there wasn't a single thing last year that I thought was ridiculous or shouldn't have been in there. That includes ELL teachers, an assistant director in human resources, more paras, school psychologists. How do you pick which one is more important than the other? Because everything comes back to the most important thing, and those are the 11,000 kids in our district. And I look forward to sitting with you during budget season. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcoux. The next person on the list is Ms. Honoro.
Here?
Yeah, there you go.
My name is Helen Honoro. I live at 46 Raymond Street. I have 2 children who have gone through the Nashua school system, and I'm very proud to choose to live in the Nashua school district. I am, however, very disappointed, embarrassed, and discouraged by the level of discourse that has gone on about the election of our student representatives. I'd like to thank Ms. Scales and Mr. Ide for putting yourself out there, for the civic engagement that you're showing, and for getting involved at this early stage of your life. You can't even vote yet, but you put yourself out there and got elected, and I am very grateful for that. What I'm not grateful for is reading in the newspaper what is essentially the undermining of a candidacy and the election for Ms. Scales. And I'm sorry to make you the subject of this discussion, but it really makes me very angry about what has happened. Based on little to no underlying evidence of irregularities, I feel as though that election has been determined to be illegitimate. And that is not only unfair, but is a terrible role model for our students who are willing to do this, for anyone who's willing to put themselves out to be elected. We need to act, and certainly our board needs to act in such a way to always remember that people are watching, that students are watching. If there were any concerns about an election, there are ways to handle that, and going about it in the manner in which it appears, and I will certainly tell you that most of my information comes from the Telegraph coverage of this story. was such an overreach, and to me, an attempt to take a very legitimate process that has gone through our schools. Our students regularly elect their senators. They regularly elect representatives, class officers. They do that from the time they're very young. It's not a new process for them. Being able to elect their representatives to this board is an incredible honor, one that I'm sure they take very seriously. And the suggestion that it is somehow was illegitimate concerns me greatly, and I hope that this board will make sure that any investigation that's deemed appropriate will happen at the appropriate place, that the high school will be able to, if there are legitimate concerns, that they will be taken up in that way, that the principals of our high schools will be provided with information if there are any concerns that people have raised, that they handle it and it not be handled in the manner in which thus far I've seen that has happened. I again thank both of you for your willingness to put yourself out there and show the kinds of leadership that you're already showing at such a young age. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next person on the list is Miss St. John. Okay. Yeah, we need you
Come
to
up,
actually come on the
please.
mic because we can't actually hear you. I'm so sorry. Oh. I'm so sorry to make you walk all the way down.
It's okay. I'm having an asthma night. So I'm not able to speak at any great length.
Name and address, please.
My name is Joanne St. John. I live at 25 Bellevue Ave in Nashua. I would just like to briefly echo what Helen Honoro has said. I congratulate these two young people for being such fine young people and being involved in our process. My heart truly breaks at a point in your life when you and your parents should be so proud of your accomplishments that you are being put through this situation. As far as I understand that the process this year is no different than it has been in any year past. So I have to question what is going on. Unfortunately, I can't speak any longer, but I do hope that this board and that the city get behind these two young people who we should be honoring and congratulating. Thank you both.
Thank you, Ms. St. John.
Thank you.
Ms. Thurber?
Dee Dee Thurber, and I live at 37 Gilson Road in Nashua. And this is coming back around to talking about the play-based kindergarten law. And I know that many of the board members are familiar with some of the things that I've shared via email, and I appreciate the responses that I have gotten. I just wanted to read something that I prepared so that I can kind of cover some points here. The play-based kindergarten law is a great opportunity that can affect change on many different levels. Young students will be able to learn in a way that is fun, child-guided, and incorporates all academic subjects as well as social-emotional development. Play developmentally is the best way for children, birth through 8, to learn. Students are not pushed beyond what they are ready to learn or capable of. More fun during their school day can increase their love of learning and love of school. Students learning with less stress may also show fewer challenging behaviors because they can do what is asked of them. They can all play. This can also reduce the stress level for our teachers, who may be able to spend more time being present with each student rather than managing behaviors. Our classrooms today look very different than when I first became director at the school that I work at 13 years ago. It is not uncommon for us to have half of our classes either needing evaluations or for students who have had evaluations and receiving services as young as 2 years old. I should say I'm the director of a preschool in Nashua. Speech, sensory integration, low muscle tone, developmental delays, and impulsive behaviors tend to be the norm. Many students that get evaluated by the district do not qualify for services. Teachers are learning how they can best support their students in their classrooms without additional help. We have changed what we do and how we teach at our school because the students we see have different needs than they did 10 years ago. An academic-based school model does not work very well when you have students that need support in the areas that I just mentioned. That support needs to come first before they are ready to learn what 2 + 2 is. As we began to see an increase in students needing extra support, we started questioning the cause of this shift. I came across a book that now guides almost all of what we do at our school, and I actually have that as a sample here. Balanced and Barefoot is a book written by Angela Hanscom, who lives in New Hampshire. She is a pediatric occupational therapist. In her book, she offers insight into what teachers currently experience in their classrooms and also talks about the rise in allergies that we actually see in our classrooms and our schools. Her bottom line is this: our children need to get outside more, spend less time on screens, be allowed to take risks, and learn how to problem solve without the intervention from adults. When children are so rigidly guided by adults about what they can do and cannot do without being able to figure things out for themselves, they lack the confidence to make their own decisions and feel that adults do not trust them to make their own decisions, which can lead to anxiety and depression. Offering parent education around this would be really helpful for families in our district. There are new projects that I'm working on right now as a result of much research and a deep sense that changes need to be made for our students. All students, not just the students at our school. The first is creating an outdoor classroom in Mine Falls Park that all district students, teachers, schools can utilize. At our school, we will work to spend 1 day a month to start with learning in the woods. We will have students dropped off at their classes at the park. The district can utilize the space as short field trip days or even create outdoor classrooms at our local schools. I will be visiting Mount Lebanon Elementary School this week, weather permitting, to see how they utilize their outdoor classroom for their kindergarten classes. This is not a new concept and could add many positive pieces to school days for both students and teachers. I have talked with the superintendent of Parks and Rec here in Nashua, and he is on board with creating an outdoor classroom in the park. Screen time is another challenge. We see it affecting even our youngest students. We celebrate a screen-free week each year in May where we talk to the students about making choices that do not involve screen time, and we educate parents about technology use with young children. I'm working to launch a community in Nashua through Turning Life On, an organization created by Adrienne Principe in Concord, Mass. This organization unites, informs, and empowers community-based support groups who care about healthy technology use for our children. Parenting in the digital age is overwhelming, and parents need support and access to information to make the best choices for their families. At Turning on Life, they realize that all communities are different and that a coalition of parents is more effective than a single voice. Our goal is to bring local parents together so they can effectuate positive change in their families and in their communities. Within the next couple of weeks, our community will have a page at Turning Life On, and I will work to bring information into all of our schools about healthy technology use and working with parents to make the choice to possibly delay purchasing smartphones for their children up until 8th grade. I presented both projects at the Wellness Committee meeting last week, and I will work to keep the Wellness Committee updated on the progress of these community endeavors. Coming full circle, a play-based curriculum in kindergarten is heading in the direction that our students need. A developmental approach to learning at the start of their educational career will also allow them to have more fun at school. This law is opening the door for change, and it is my hope that other changes will follow in our district so that we can truly meet the needs of our students today in 2019. I do appreciate the fact that Dr. McKinney has been working on the implementation of this law, that Dr. Mosley has organized a professional development day around social emotional learning, and that the district is sharing information with teachers about mindfulness courses. Having staff step into these practices allows for many positive shifts to happen for themselves and for the classrooms that they teach in. I believe letting parents know some of this information is important, that it shows that our district is working towards new and healthy goals for both our teachers and students. I believe that having consistency across the district is important, especially when changes are made. It was the consistency within the district kindergarten classrooms that led me to question the implementation of the play-based law, feeling that it can't come soon enough. Recesses, cell phone policies, and homework policies could be examples of things that would be best served with a consistency across the entire district. On a final note, communication can be challenging. Our community witnesses challenges here. We all have challenges at different levels with communication. In my position as director of a school with a staff of 10, I have challenges. Working at each staff meeting on team building and communication exercises helps immensely. Mindful Schools offers an amazing communication course that is life-changing. One of the guiding teachers from that course has written a book called Say What You Mean, which I also have the example of that here. This book helps to guide us in our continued journey to improve our relationships at our school. This book is now required reading for the staff at our school. It would be a great way to help this board head in a better direction as well. Each person here has something to offer on this board in our community. If you strip away some agendas, some blaming, some passive-aggressive tendencies, and some competitive tendency, true communication can happen. Each of you can work on what you bring to the table and change the feel of this board so that you can truly support the students in this district without conflict. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Thurber. That is it for my list of signups. Did anyone else wish to speak before we move on? Seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's comments.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I have a kind of a long list here, so I just want to acknowledge the 2019 student governor, Leola Garnelli is her name. She was a student of ours, and I just know it's in our board packet. I also wanted to just say that congratulations. At some point, I'd like to have her come to the board and see how we can serve her as our student governor representative. I think that'd be pretty cool. I want to also acknowledge Jordan Thompson, who was selected to be representative of the MBK Rising Stars in Oakland, California. We'll have an opportunity to meet potentially an ex-president. I'm not going to say too much. I don't want to jinx him because we know how schedules work. But congratulations to Jordan, and full disclosure, that's Gloria's grandson. I also want to say that we're in budget season. I know that that Mr. Marcoux mentioned that, which is, it's true, we're in the season. We have a first meeting coming up on Wednesday, so please stay tuned as we start to work through our budget. Strategic planning. I think we have done so many different things with strategic planning, and it's exciting that coming very, very soon, it's kind of, that's the teaser, we're going to have our survey available. We're just working out the final details on that, and certainly it's coming, so just stay tuned. Recently, the Technology Committee met to explore different options around website design and platform. Some of you don't know, but calling a delay or calling off school is a pretty prodigious undertaking. And so our website could use, and it's no one's fault, I'm not here criticizing, but certainly we're exploring some ways where our websites can be a little bit more interactive. I know everyone can hear my voice when I say a delay or there's no school. However, I've received some feedback, and I think it's constructive feedback, that they would rather not hear my voice. They would probably like a text message or something that would allow them to get some type of report as opposed to a phone call from me. There's some other options too that some of the current websites offer that we're currently exploring. So there'll be more updates as we start to delve into the budget process around the cost or options. So just, I wanted to make everyone aware of that. Elm Street, congratulations to the Elm Street Middle School robotics team who competed this past weekend at a tournament in New Hampshire. There were 4 out of our 7 teams represented the Nashua Public Schools. The teams were rented by 7th and 8th grade students from Nashua. They did a great job. These activities range from coding, STEAM research. So I wanted to congratulate those students at Elm Street. At Pennachuck, on Friday, January 18th, was an open house event that was a landmark fair for our parents and families. Students picked a landmark where somewhere in the world, using the 5 themes of geography, created a brochure including fast facts and countries that they were found that built on the model of using math, and wrote various types of brochures for areas in Nashua or geological areas where they could share their findings with their parents. So again, these are some community activities that are taking place in our schools, and I just want to make people aware of that. STEAM Fest is 2019 Nashua STEAM Fest. It's a hands-on activity. It is coming up at UNH College, or the College of Engineering and Physical Science, Saturday, February 9th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I just wanted to let people make them aware of that. Sorry, that was I'm sorry, that's going to be taking place at Mount Pleasant too. Sorry about that. We did that last year. Well, you were there, Dottie, right? Just for you, even though you might not see cars there, see, when I went there last year, it was I actually showed up to Mount Pleasant, but I didn't see any cars, so I actually thought it was the wrong place, or it had, since everyone was dismissed, but that's not true. It runs from 9:45, I'll just say from 9:30 to about 2 p.m. It's a great way to just see our kids and the STEAM activities that they do at our school, and so I encourage individuals to go out and just take a look at that. We were very, very fortunate, and I want to, Mike Harrington, Dr. McKinney, that if anybody watches HGTV, and I use the Extreme Makeover with our computer labs and furniture, that was sponsored by the Boston Celtics Technology Lab, Aaron Barnes and Leon Poe. I think I'm saying that right, correct? Is it Poe?
Aaron Baines,
Baines,
he's a
sorry.
center, and Leon Poe, retired Celtic.
Okay.
Key contributor to the Celtics championships.
Okay. I'm a Laker fan. I was a Laker fan growing up. I'm so sorry. Showtime, Magic, James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Anyways, listen, I'm warming up to them. I was a big UMass guy, Marcus Camby. Anyways, whatever the case, listen, I'm a Celtics fan today, right now. They came to our schools. Go Celtics, go green, right? So listen, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Our community thanks to Boston Celtics. I thank you for coming out and spending some time with us. Certainly, we will be rooting for you in the conference championships. So whatever happens, one of the things that's great, it's about partnership. And whether it's a basketball team or anything outside organizations, I really appreciate the Boston Celtics, Principal Harrington, and anyone who else was involved in this. I'm probably not going to get all the names, but it's certainly the room that we had outfitted looks a lot better now than it did when it wasn't. So there's a player feature, motivational video. There's some things that the kids did, and I encourage, what we'll probably do for the board is set up some type of tour at some point for you to take a look at it. I think it's pretty cool. There is registration for kindergarten started January 24th at all the elementary schools. So if you have any questions around that to the general public, please feel free to look on our website and get the directions. And if you don't have a computer or anything like that, please feel free to give us a call, and we certainly will give you some information regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. Any board response to the superintendent's comments this evening? Looking around. Ms. Howensey?
I would just like to make it clear that I welcome the 2 new members that are on our board. And I have never said that they don't belong here. And I just want to make that clear to the people who made public comment, that my only right to know request was to find procedures moving forward. So, because they're required by law, RSA 194-23F. So I just want to say thank you for running, and thank you for being elected, and you're in no way involved in any confusion that has come out through my right to know request.
Thank you, Ms. Hohensee. And just a reminder, this is the time to respond to the superintendent's comments. So if anyone has any comments related to the superintendent's comments, now is the time for that. Okay, Mr. Mosier?
No, I have no comments to add to the superintendent.
Okay, thank you so much. So moving on, it is time for student member of the board comments, if you have any.
I would like the public to know that on January 16, 2019, George and I had gotten a chance to meet Tara Kinsella. It was very nice to meet her. She was very informative, kind, and welcoming. We also received a tour of the district office by our wonderfully informative liaison, Ms. Timmons. During the tour, we visited the HR department, the director of special education, Marcia Bagley, and the director of student services, Bob Chioppa, and many more. Also, this week is Spirit Week for NHSN. Today was Pajama Day. Tomorrow is Time Travel Tuesday. January 30th is Students Dress for Success Wednesday. Yeah. The 31st is Animal Thursday, and the 1st of February is Beat South Friday. Go Titans. That would be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scales. Mr. Eid?
I just wanted to say that we've had fair student elections for the past number of years, and the process has been pretty much the same. Anyone can run, and that's what we did this year. But besides that, for Battle of the Bridge, go South.
Oh my goodness. All right. Best of luck to both of you. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Committee on the Budget, Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. As Dr. Mosley had reminded us, we have a schedule in our packet. Our first budget meeting is Wednesday, January 30th at 6:30 p.m. right here. I believe on the agenda, the administration is going to give us a budget overview. So that's what's coming up.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Committee on Finance and Operations, Ms. Oden.
Thank you. We haven't had a meeting yet, but we do have a meeting scheduled for February 5th in this room.
Okay. Thank you. And Committee on Policy, Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. We have 3 items that went through the Policy Committee. The first 2 have to do with security, and although we approved them to be approved at the committee level, I understand that there are still some people in administration and security that would like to have them go back to policy to review, to give more of a chance to review them. So that's the policy KI, visitors to the school, and policy JHC, and also the rescinding of the old one. So because of this information that I now know that they need more time to review it, I would like to move to send back to policy KI, visitors to the school, and policy JHC, student release precautions.
So you are withdrawing those 2 policies so that Chris Lassard can review them, our Director of
Yes.
Security? Okay.
Yes.
Great. And then you also have here policy ILAA.
Once again, even though we had looked at this policy, there was still some ironing out of the words and the verbiage in the policy. So once again, I'd like to send this back to committee,
So you're withdrawing that one as well?
withdrawing this one as well.
Okay. When do you meet again?
I'm not sure, let me see, I've got my,
2-5.
thank
On
you,
the
Mr.
5th?
Mosher. Thank you, Mr. Mosher.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Van Twyver, and then Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. I understand that in a previous policy, a phrase was omitted from the policy. I wonder if that has been corrected and put back in. And I also wonder if the policy committee reviews these changes to make sure that they're edited and done correctly before that comes back to the board.
Do you recall which policy was missing a phrase? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, I can't, no, I don't remember the one, but I can give it to you in an email later, but it was recent. And it would have made quite a difference about, it was the one that had how to change emergency changes to policies at the BEDB, thank you.
Okay.
I understand that there was a phrase left out which would have changed and made the board being able to change anything at the board level. So I want to make sure that that has been done, that's been corrected, and that future changes to these policies are proofread so that all the edits are made correctly.
So just so I'm understanding correctly, you would like to ask Policy Committee to review BEDB again to ensure that the phrasing is correct, or?
Well, it's in the minutes what the correct phrasing should be. I just want to make sure that that edit was put back in. That's all I have to do is check with Tara.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Thank you. Mr. Kaufman?
Thanks. Just really a point of clarification. So when you say it's going to be going back to committee, that'll be going back on the agenda for discussion again?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other, Ms. Timmons?
I just want to correct the date. The date for the next policy meeting is February the 19th.
February the 19th. Thank you.
That was my mistake. The 5th is the F&O.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Okay. Moving right along, the Committee on Curriculum and Evaluation.
Thank you. We met on January 23rd, and I think we had a really great meeting. We were focusing on some of the many positive things happening in our school, and as Dr. Mosley mentioned, Mike Harrington, the principal of Fairgrounds, came with a couple of students from Gen Yes, and they talked about the SNHU and Boston Celtics Tech Lab, and it was really great to see the excitement around this really great thing going on, so that was fun. We had Jen Hosking come to talk about the Nashua Public Library Summer Reading Partnership, which was also great. We love our library. The Power Scholars Summer 2018 Impact Report was given to us by Gail Casey. Some really positive things. I did visit that summer school program, and it's pretty amazing. It's going on again, coming up. They're already planning for that. We do have a motion to bring forward to the full board. Gail Casey is in charge of the 21st Century program, which we currently have at 5 schools, Amherst, Ledge, Crisp, Fairgrounds, and Mount Pleasant. And if any of you have ever been to those, you know how great those programs are, and if you haven't, you should visit. Gail Casey has been encouraged by the state to apply for additional funding so that we can bring 21st Century programs to additional schools, Sunset and Birch Hill. So she would like our permission to go ahead with that application. So I move that the Nashua School District Board of Ed supports submitting a proposal to bring 21st Century Extended Day to 2 additional schools, Sunset Heights and Birch Hill.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kaufman?
Thanks. I think it's a great idea, but I'm just curious, what will be the long-term financial impact to the district? So if you get X amount of dollars for a grant, how long will that be for? What happens when the grant expires? Are those costs expected to be picked up by the district? We get the same questions we have with the technology. You're going to give us all this technology, thank you, but in 2 or 3 or 5 years, we're going to have to replace it. We're going to have to pay for license fees, maintenance. So there's an unidentified cost to the district. So I'd like to know what that is.
It's my belief, Dr. McKinney, that this is completely funded through the grant. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. At this point, we're just asking for the board's approval to apply for the grant, and then we'll be back once we're hopefully awarded the grant, and then ask for your acceptance of the grant and be able to provide more information regarding the impact of future costs. But right now, everything is funded through the grant. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kaufman.
So I appreciate that. So you get the grant, and we never turn down money, right? So the reality is, if you apply for the grant, and then you come to the board to accept it, so we're never going to say no, right? This board won't do that. But we won't know the impact. We should know the impact at the front end of the grant process, so that when we get a request like this, and I appreciate them coming forward at the front end of the request, we know what the implication's going to be 2 or 3 years out. So I think it's a little bit early to approve the request to get the grant. I would like to know what its impact on the district will be in case we get it. We need to know what that is, especially if it's going to cost us money. Maybe all paid for now up front, but you can rest assured there's a back-end cost, and we don't know what that is.
Yes, Ms. Oden.
And Dr. McKinney can clarify this. It's my understanding Title I, Title II grants, and I believe Title III, we apply for every 2 years. They're 2-year grants, and that we just reapply for them when the grant is up. Is that correct?
Yes, the grant that pays for the 21st century programs on a similar cycle. We're in good standing with the state. We had 2 opportunities, either to expand into the high school and middle schools or expand our elementary schools. And in working with Mrs. Casey, she suggested we expand the model to the elementary and build a solid foundation and then move towards the middle school from here. So one of the requirements on the grant is that the board is approving and endorsing the grant going forward. So I'm asking if we could check that box, apply in March, and then we'll be back in June so we could have these sites up and running for the next school year come August, September. Thank you.
No, I was just going to say I will fully support this. Having taught in a Title I school, I know the impact of programs like this, and I know both those schools have a fairly high number of students who will benefit from this. So I would encourage people to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oden. And go ahead, Ms. Hohensee.
Thank you. I was in the curriculum committee, and I thank you for bringing the motion forward. I think it was mine. I think we said to approve and encourage.
I think you did, and I did
That's
not
all right.
wordsmith that well at all, and
That's
I
all right.
apologize.
That's all right, but I think the idea, we were very enthusiastic
Yes, we
that we
were.
would go forward with this, see what we got, and work from there. But this is one of the first grants where they've come to us at the beginning, so I think that's a very good step, too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hohensee. All right. If there's no further discussion, Mr. Guarino?
Yeah, I would just like some clarification on the motion by Ms. Porter.
Okay. You can help me out with this. All right. So the Nashua School District Board of Ed enthusiastically supports submitting a proposal to bring 21st Century Extended Day to 2 additional schools
Okay.
Sunset Heights and Birch Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a second?
Yes, Ms. Van Twyver seconded it, I believe.
There were 2 of us.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, it slipped right out of my mind. No. Okay. Then if we're ready for the roll?
If we're ready for the vote, Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, Ms. Van Twyver.
I have a question regarding curriculum. I understand that has been an appointment of a board member to the district curriculum committee. I'd like to know who that is, and will we be getting a liaison report?
That is an excellent question. I do not know the answer. Is Dr. Mosley or Ms. Porter?
The curriculum committee consists of Ms. Porter, Ms. O'Hensey, Gloria, and who's the alternate? Dottie's the alternate?
The question is the district's curriculum committee. It was in E-News. I read it in either E-News or iNews.
That the question is that they were appointed to a state-level curriculum committee?
To
No.
our district curriculum committee. We do have that, right?
Dr. McKinney, do you know what's?
Pardon me? Yeah.
Oh, the teachers committee. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I believe
Dr. McKinney.
the message that went out in iNews is looking for board representation on the Literacy Pilot Selection Committee. It's an elementary focus group, and we are looking for BOE representation.
I thought it said curriculum, but whichever.
Okay. Well, since that has been brought up, are there board members that would please email me if they have an interest in being part of that group? And Dr. McKinney, if you could provide a little bit more information, I'll ask Ms. Kinsella to email that out, and then people can respond if they're interested. Does that satisfy your question?
Yep.
Excellent. Yep. Anything further, Ms. Porter?
Our next meeting will be on February 18th.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The Committee on Human Resources, Ms. Timmons.
Yes, Madam President. I'd like to move to suspend the rules of the Human Resources Committee met today at 5:35 p.m.
So you're moving to suspend the rules so that we can consider?
To move to accept the personnel recommendation.
Okay.
Dated January 28th today. So can I have,
I'll second the motion.
okay.
I
Just
think,
wanna-
just to clarify, I think we have two motions in one. We're moving to suspend the rules to consider the personnel recommendations that were put today, and then the second motion would be to accept them.
Yes.
Okay, so for the first motion would be to suspend the rules to consider the personnel recommendations?
Right.
Okay.
Because we met earlier today, so we need to suspend the rules so we can work, so we can move to accept the personnel recommendation.
Okay. Any discussion on suspending the rules to consider the personnel recommendations from today's meeting? No. Okay. I'm going to call the roll.
On the motion, Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes, Ms. Hohensee,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Porter.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0, I'm sorry.
Okay, wonderful. And then you had a second
Move to
motion.
accept the personnel recommendations of January 28th, 2019. That's in your packet.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kaufman?
Thanks. I have a question for Ms. O'Gara. I think I counted about 15 resignations. When are they due? Retirements, I'm sorry.
I think there are 12 on there.
Oh, 12, okay. And when are they due by the contract, so we'll know when?
February 1st.
Oh, okay, so this is really
That's the first. There will be more in the next board meeting.
Okay, their submissions had to be in this week. We, on the board, don't necessarily see them yet. That's fine. Okay, thank you. Do you have any idea how many we might have this year?
I think we're probably going to end up with 25, tops 30.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? No? Okay, when you're ready, Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. On the motion to accept the personnel recommendations, January 28, 2019, Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensie?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, the next meeting for the HR committee will be February the 11th, 2019.
Thank you, Ms. Timmons. Okay. The next item on the agenda is liaison reports. The first one is regarding the Board of Ed student representatives. Ms. Timmons, that's you?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. We did meet a couple of weeks ago, and it was a great meeting. I did have the exact date, but whatever Jamila, Ashante, and George said, that's what we did. They were also given a handbook. It was a great meeting. They got to tour the facility and meet the staff there, and I look forward to meeting with them again on February the 20th, 2019, 2:30 at the district office. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Timmons. Strategic plan.
As I said earlier in the superintendent's report, we've completed the majority of our focus groups. We're moving to the survey, launching that. We're working out the final details of that survey. I'd say we're pretty much done. We just have to do some translations on that survey, and we're translating into Spanish, Portuguese, and just making sure the wording's okay. So that's coming soon. We're just a tad behind, no one's fault. But we just want to make sure once it goes out, we're not recalling it and sending it out multiple times. So there will be a grand announcement when that survey is finally available for everyone to review and participate in. Sue, is there anything I missed?
No, and just, along the line of it being a little bit delayed, it's just a prodigious undertaking.
Yeah, I agree.
And we have worked really hard to make sure that it's done correctly. And we have field tested it a number of times, and so it's just taken a little bit longer than we expected, but for good reasons.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. We had a prior focus group scheduled with the aldermen. It was supposed to be a joint Board of Ed and aldermanic, if I said that right, joint focus group meeting that was kind of canceled. The aldermen couldn't make it. And I just wanted to know when that will be rescheduled. I asked at the last meeting, so this is my next chance to do that.
Yeah, we reached out to the aldermen in their schedule, and certainly when it opens up, we will coordinate that. It's a question of availability and what's going on with their schedule and our schedule too. So as soon as that happens, we'll be more than willing to do that.
Thank you.
All right, and not noted on here, but the Ed Council did meet earlier this month. Ms. Porter, did you want to speak to that quickly?
Well, you and I are the board reps on that. Dr. Mosley's on there with some teacher representatives, and it's just a really a great time to discuss issues at each level, and I think that a lot of good things are coming out of that, and it was our first meeting, and I thought it was productive and open.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver.
Yes, I'd like to know who the teacher representatives are on that committee. I think there's probably 3.
Yep. Oh, you're going to make this difficult. It's Wendy Dufault, yes, from the high school. I believe she's a Spanish teacher. It is Stephanie Keating-Bard from the middle school level. And it is Mr. Verano. I can't remember his first name. What? Dave, Mr. Dave Verano from the elementary level.
Thank you. At the October meeting, it was reported that behavior was the problem. I'm wondering what is being done to address that, and if we're making any progress.
It was
Dr.
actually,
Mosley?
yeah, okay. Dr. Mosley? Or would you like me to respond since I was there? Okay. It was actually a really interesting meeting because that took up the bulk of our conversation. Yeah.
For years it has.
Yeah, Ms. Bard actually said that with the addition of a new assistant principal, that she felt at her school that behaviors had improved and that she was having more confidence in the way discipline was being handled, which made me quite pleased, frankly. But it sounds like we have a long way to go as far as updating our behavioral standards and perhaps our handbook regarding that to bring it up to date with what both teachers and administrators would like to see. I kind of feel like it falls under some of the strategic plan process too, where as we're looking at educating the whole child and doing some social emotional piece, having behavior management at each level makes sense. So the teachers have been really open about continuing to talk about that. Some discussions about the teachers forming a committee to discuss what they would like and then bring that back instead of a top-down approach. Anything else I'm missing?
I think it's complicated. It's beyond the scope of this meeting. I think there's been some healthy discussions around behavior. I think there's been some budget pieces that happened around the behavioral piece. I think, I believe, Mr. Marcoux touched upon that a little bit around budget reductions that have taken place through our school psychologists, through our functional behaviorists, and some limitations of the budget. I also think that there's some ownership here a little bit. There's been a tremendous amount of transition in our district, but here at the board level, actually here at the superintendent level, the assistant superintendent level. If I could just briefly say, and I'm looking at you, Deb, you and I went through this exercise. Steve, just to give you a sense of the behavioral intervention programs that have been introduced at our elementary school. Stephen Covey, 7 habits. Okay, 7 habits. There was PBIS. There was responsive classroom. There was the leader in me. There was, give me another one. 7 zones of regulation, right? There was responsive classrooms. Love and logic. I'll stop right there. Over the last, what's that? You got one more? These discussions have led to something very, very clear. 6, by the way, I think we're missing 2. I'd say I think we were up to 7 to 8 different behavioral programs that we have going on in our elementary schools. Are we saying one program is better than the other? No. We're saying that there needs to be some discussion around consistency, expectation, and more importantly, professional development around that. And it's unfair for us to say that, it's the kid's fault. It's unfair to all of us to say that's the student's fault. I think there's some ownership on all of us as educators, parents, and students around what's that expectation. So that's the one part of it. You'll see in the budget coming up on Wednesday some of the challenges that have happened at our middle school, particularly around, and I'm not saying it worked or not, but at some point there was a Phoenix program that was helpful in identifying and working with those kids that were just what I call on the bubble. I'm not here criticizing previous superintendents or assistant superintendents, but that was eliminated. When you eliminate a program, all you do is just put the kids back in the classroom. So there was no supports for these kids. And these supports didn't start when they're in middle school. It starts when they're in the elementary school. So they show up at the middle school, and there's nothing really there for them. So that's another piece that we put into for discussion. And finally, at the high school, there are some students that have been with us throughout their entire elementary and middle school career. And I'm looking at Mr. Richards because he's here. What Donna and I did is that we walked through all of our middle schools and high schools, and it was very enlightening. Nothing bad, nothing, shocking, but still, there are kids that just come to us that have varied educational careers, experiences, and have not had a good history of academics, and is staring Mr. Richards, in this case, in his face saying, I've got this, you can go along a little bit. And those kids need something, and finding out what those kids need is important. And so Mr. Richards, his leadership team, the students, the teachers, trying a variety of different things to engage those students. The great thing about this, just let me finish 1 second. Well, question, The great thing about this is that the middle school, and this is a teaser, we'll come back to this, the middle school and the high school, approximately 83 to 84% of our kids are never involved in the discipline system at all, not one. Another 10-ish, 15% are involved, but they're very, very minor, like, detention, lunch detentions, and what have you. What we found is that there's a small number of students that are chronic offenders of our discipline system, and the question is, what do we do with that? And for it to get better up at the high school, it really has to start at the elementary school, and that's our challenge.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. And just to clarify, I believe you're working on a report for us for the next meeting with some data about like suspensions and other disciplinary interventions.
I will have that information for you at the secondary. Yes, I will, and I can explain it a lot more when that comes up.
Okay, great. Thank you. So to be continued for the February 11th meeting. Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. I move to convene a special board meeting to discuss student behavior and staff and student safety. If I can get a second, I'd like to speak to my motion. Thank you. So I had asked for this previously. I appreciate the context that it came up with in tonight. I had a conversation with a teacher, I think it was back in December, and they expressed to me their concern for safety. They're a high school teacher. And then we had that episode where, and I still don't know the complete story of were there 30 suspensions or not. I don't know. Mr. Guarino said it was a rumor. I don't have the correct information, but I do think the board deserves to have a focus on school safety and staff safety and student behavior. That's why I filed my right to know request, which I think Ms. Raymond alluded to, where that data will be forthcoming. So I'd like a vote, or certainly a discussion on this request for convening a special board meeting.
Any discussion? Anyone? Okay, Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I don't think we need a special board meeting. I'm not going to support this. And I don't think we need right-to-know filings. That's a legal action, and it's a violation of the Board of Education's written policies that individuals take legal action. Individuals of this board take legal action. It's a violation of our policies. We're not, when individuals on this board file right-to-knows, we're not acting as a team. We're not trusting our fellow board members. We're basically just rogue actors. But that's another issue, and it's a separate issue, and we need to work together as a team, and we need to. That's what we need to do on this board, and also, as I said, we need real evidence and real proof about things before we jump to conclusions about what's going on. And we also need to trust the professionalism of administration, okay? We need to trust what they're telling us, okay? We're talking about people who work in this district that are professionals. They're professional educators. They have a lot of experience, and we need to trust them. Otherwise, we're just, we're sending them a message that we don't trust them, and that's not good for the district. So I am not going to support to have a special meeting. I don't think we need it. I just don't.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Ms. Van Twyver?
Thank you, Madam President. I served on the Ed Council Committee, I don't know, a couple of years. Behavior was a problem then. Wendy Defoe brought it up all the time. And it doesn't seem to be that we're making much progress if we still hear that complaint. And I would like to see, that's one of the reasons why I ran for the Board of Education, because of some kid that took something and hit a teacher with it, and I thought that was just ridiculous. And it doesn't seem like we've made much progress. And I think it's one thing to have policies, and the policy that we have was well done when I was policy chair on behavior problems and all that. So I would caution you about what to change on that, because I thought it was very good. We had teachers that came in and everything, so. But it seems to me that something stronger needs to be done, and I would love to hear a program, one program, that is used throughout the district to ensure that these children are respecting our teachers and respecting the education that we're trying to give them. And if they're not interested, then I say let's get them out of the district, because they're just causing a lot of angst for our teachers. So I will vote for this. I would like to hear a strategic plan even pointed out the problem with behavior, that on many things that I read, that it says that it was a primary problem. So I don't agree with you, Mr. Garino. I think that we need to get these things under control, because it makes lives for our teachers a lot easier if they have behaving students in the classroom. If it takes writing a letter home to every parent in the district to say, look, we're concerned about this, and we want a safe environment for all our students and our teachers. So I will vote for this.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. One moment, please, Mr. Mosier. Ms. Hohensee has had her hand up.
Thank you.
Okay.
President Raymond. I would like this meeting, whether it's a separate board meeting or not, but I would like to discuss this. This is something that I've wondered about for 3 years. And what you don't understand, I don't mean to be personal, but what some people don't understand about the right to know request is everybody that gets on this board takes an oath. It's an individual oath to uphold the law while overseeing the district. If we can't get information, we can't do our job. My right to know about the procedures that were required by law was important to me. I found out there are no procedures. Now we have something we need to look at. Why aren't there procedures in place? So you can't stifle the minority. They're still citizens. They still have a right to get some information, and they don't have to demonstrate a need for the information or a motivation. I did when I said why I wanted it, and even that was taken out of context. But I think you need to respect the minority on this board, and when they feel that they need information to do their job, I think we should be a little bit more open-minded on some of this information.
Thank you, Ms. Hohensee. Mr. Mosier.
Thank you. I hear a lot of words coming out, but I haven't heard too much real wisdom on the subject of behavior. And, behavior does not necessarily start in the classroom. It goes back a long ways further than that. I can remember, and I think Mr. Ryder would be with me on this, that back in the 1940s, we had that problem then with behavior. We had behavior in the high school. We've had behavior problems all over, and it has not been because of the children per se, but it's what they have been shown at the home and what they have been allowed to do, whether it be in the home or in the streets or in their social gatherings where they needed to prove themselves or prove something. And they do that, and it carries over into the schools. And where they do not show respect is because they do not show respect at home either, where kids will turn around and scream at their mothers that that's not fair, I'm not going to do it. And I certainly would not accept that in my home with my any one of my 5 children. And I think we have to look a little bit further. I don't think we need a special meeting. What are we going to do with a special meeting? We're going to hash things over and do the same thing over and over and over again? What did Einstein say? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it still comes out as wrong. We don't want to do that. There has to be another way to get at the root problem. And yes, we need, say, student psychologists. We need, some behavioral specialists, and we have to hold these kids to their feet to the fire if they do something wrong. And it's not that we have to go and do this or do that and have special meetings for this or that. That doesn't work. And how many times can you do something that doesn't work? And we have a special meeting, and all we're going to do is blah, 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 and hash the same thing over and over again. I don't think that's good. It doesn't get us anywhere, and it's not doing our job. We're not supposed to be doing that. We are supposed to oversee the administrators. If the administrators aren't doing their job, if a kid takes a swipe at a teacher, they should press charges on him. Call a cop on him. If you've got the resource officers there, they can handle that. Don't have to bring the Board of Education into it. What for? That's not our job.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Ms. Oden, and then Dr. Mosley, and then back again.
I'm not going to support a special meeting. Dr. Mosley has already said he's going to bring something forward at the next board meeting. I'm very concerned when I hear people talking about a 30-student suspension that happened. I don't know how many there were, but I'll tell you, I have full confidence in our administrators. They work very hard. They know their school. They know their students. And they are the ones that have to protect the safety of all students. And for us to second-guess our administrators is wrong. They are there. They're doing their job. And from everything I've heard, they're doing a very good job. So I'm not looking for any special meetings so we can micromanage our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oden. Dr. Moser?
I think I'll echo Ms. Oden's words. And I am confident that if there were concerns around discipline at the high school, that there are mechanisms that we have in our policies for parents to utilize in effect that they feel that their child has not been given due process. We also have very clear infractions that warrant the discipline. And so if there were anything that was in violation or discussion around that, the parents have the right to exercise that. And that works through the principal, through our student services, and through me. And at that point, if the parent decides to pursue it, and it could certainly come to the board at that level. But again, to get into micromanaging the principals through the board is not appropriate. So thank you.
Mr. Kaufman, briefly, please.
Sure. Well, I didn't make a formal proposal. Maybe I should have prepared one. But it's obvious that behavior is a concern. It's lasted for a long time. My purpose in requesting a special meeting was to get feedback from teachers and the psychologists and the students. They experience it every day. If it's bullying, if it's harassment, if it's whatever, if it's happening, the board needs to know, okay? Because if you're going to ask us for more money, for more psychologists, and et cetera, mental health professionals, it might help if you could justify it with some statistics or data that supports it. Now, within that context, this type of a meeting that I was requesting, that would be a very good way to get information to the board, especially before we get too deep into budget season. Because otherwise, let's get another dozen psychologists, but why? Okay? So what I'm saying is give us information so we can make a more informed decision. And I can't deny the fact that I've had more than one teacher call and say they're concerned for their safety in one of our high schools. So whoever you are, if you're watching, and I think they do, this one's for you. Thank you.
Mr. Guarino, and then I'd like to say something, unless someone who hasn't spoken yet has something.
Thank you,
Briefly,
Madam.
please.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to say that I am really tired of hearing people on this board complain about being in the minority. and they feel as though they're disrespected, and so they go off and they take legal action on their own, and because they feel as though nobody listens to them. Well, I think they disrespect the democratic process. The democratic process requires that you work with your fellow board members, you gain consensus, you put your differences aside, you base your statements and you base what you have on real evidence, not rumor. Don't go off on right to know on rumors and innuendo, okay? And so you want respect. Respect is a two-way street. Respect the democratic process, okay? Let's reach a consensus. Let's work together. And so I'm not going to support having this special meeting because I have full confidence that that information that Mr. Kaufman requires is going to come to us. It's going to come to us through our committees. It's going to come to us through the budget process. It came to us last year about where the shortages were, and why they needed them. We had presentations. It's going to come to us. We just have to listen instead of running off and saying, I need a big laundry list, X, Y, Z, You're just going off on your own. And we need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. I have a few thoughts about this. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm very concerned if there are teachers who are consistently feeling unsafe in their workplace. That is not okay with me. We don't want our teachers to feel unsafe here. And so certainly I would hope that there is a mechanism in place for them to address that. If that is the case, that there's something going on perhaps with administration and school security to work on that, because I am not okay with that. I'm also not okay with the idea of students feeling unsafe in their learning environment. This is supposed to be a safe place for everyone. And I know that's a little idealistic, but I'd like to work in that direction. Having said that, what Mr. Mosier says really resonates with me about students coming with a lot more, I'm going to call it baggage, than they've had before. We have students who are homeless, we have students who are food insecure, we have students who have experienced a significant amount of trauma at home. We have our opiate crisis, we're the kind of hub for that right now. New Hampshire, not necessarily Nashua. And so I think we are having a lot more burden placed on our staff to be able to manage some of our students' needs. I do think it's important that we continue to work on discipline. I know Dr. Mosley is starting the process with bringing us some information, but I feel like this is something that ought not be board down, but rather teacher and staff up to let us know. If there are any parents out there who have concerns about discipline, I encourage them to follow our policies. And that is, you go to the principal, and then if you're not happy, you go to the assistant superintendent. If you're not happy, you go to the superintendent. And if you're still not happy, then you write to us, and we have a hearing on whether or not we're going to overturn the action that has made you unhappy. So at this time, I feel like a special meeting of the board is perhaps premature. But I'm wondering if there is some other way to achieve this goal, and whether it be through the strategic planning process, whether it be through one of the committees. I don't know the answer to that, but I certainly think that the assistant superintendents and the superintendent should have some conversations and then let us know at our next meeting when you present your data to us what makes sense. And maybe it's through the budget process when we're talking about more school psychologists and more paras that are desperately needed.
You didn't acknowledge me.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Go ahead, Dr.
This
Mosley.
is a great conversation, kindergarten, play-based learning. I mean, all these things factor in to things that affect our district every single day. And so part of it is prioritizing, getting the data, talking, acknowledging some shortfalls. We have to acknowledge that this isn't a problem that had started 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This has been systematic long before probably most of us sat here. When you have budgets that are at 1 point something, 2 points. It takes, it takes over a 2%, if not more, to keep salaries and wages, and we'll talk more about this on Wednesday. So anytime you have a budget that starts with a 1, you are already in cut mode. You already are. That's it. There's just so much stress that this district can take when it comes to personnel, expectations, administrative support, guidance counselors, functional behavioral specialists. All of those things have been reduced in some ways. I'm looking at Keith here, we even talked about the academy system in his building and how that is supposed to run. We have all of his assistant principals doing 504s. That's not their job. That's not what they should be doing. You should have, every single building should have some form of a 504 coordinator that's specifically working with the functional behavioral individuals, that's working with the guidance counselors. But you have, because over the years, and no one's fault sitting here, a system where there's been reductions and people wearing multiple hats to make it work. So there isn't any, I'm not going to sit here, Dr. McKinney isn't, or even Ms. Fitzpatrick is going to sit here and say, there's a magic bullet right here. Give us this. That's not going to happen. You're looking at a significant financial and human capital investment that's going to start now and work over the next 10 years to get to where you need to be. There's no shortcomings here. There's no, how about we cut this position to make this person this? It's not. So we'd be more than happy to have that discussion. We've been talking with principals, assistant superintendents, teachers about this, and certainly we echo their same frustrations that they have experienced, but understand that there are also, if there is something that a parent is disappointed in terms of a discipline, we do have policies in place for that due process. And I would also say there's a checks and balances here piece. Ultimately, I'm not the person that makes the final determination. It's actually the board. So if it gets up to my level, and whether I say yay or nay, the parents are still part and have that opportunity to have that due process. And I share that with everyone only because there is a system that exists for our parents and our teachers and our administrators to follow. And it's a system that that works, and certainly be more than happy to talk more about discipline at a later date.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mosley. Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I'll make this brief.
Thank you. I would prefer that we not have a back and
No,
forth.
I'm going to put a closure to it. So I think my motion obviously spurred discussion, which I think validates the need for the discussion. Move to call the question.
Okay. So we need to vote on calling the question? Well, because he moved to call the question, so.
Okay, on the move to call the question, Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yeah.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensie?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Okay, now, on the motion, Mr. Kaufman moved to convene a special board meeting to discuss student discipline and safety. Ms. Oden?
No.
And staff member, student and staff member.
And staff members, okay.
Yes, please do, if we want to get it right.
So I move to convene a special board meeting to discuss student behavior and staff and student safety.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman.
okay. Mrs. Oden votes no, you said?
No.
Okay. Ms. Raymond?
No.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
No.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Hohensie?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
No.
Ms. Porter?
No.
I have 6 noes and 3 yeses. Motion fails.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. I think that conversation was an interesting segue to the next item on our agenda, which is unfinished business. And the first item is the NEASC evaluation for South. So this looks like fun. Thank you so much, Mr. Richards, for staying.
Thank you for having me. Just a quick update on where we're at in the process. So I can share that we are legit. We have received our accreditation from the NEAS process.
Hey.
It ended there, but no, we have some work to do. So as I had said last time I came, we were going to probably receive a letter from them about next steps, and we certainly did that. So I kind of mentioned that the 3 outcomes or 2 outcomes could have been a special progress report or a 2-year report coming down the line. So we have a special progress report that we need to complete by September 1, 2019. And for that, we just kind of have to give a timeline for these events. And actually, budget kind of comes up actually a little bit in here too. So the first bullet is for us to develop a clear timeline for core values, beliefs, the vision of the graduate. That's the new steps I think I had talked about last time as the new standard switch. Schools will be asked to create a vision of the graduate, and that will represent all stakeholders. The next 4 bullets all kind of talk about funding to support school programming, technology, budget issues, technology, school furniture, instructional materials, things like that. And then the last one is to create a shared professional development vision for the school that aligns with district initiatives, which will be great to do once we have the strategic plan going. I think it'll be nice that we can just align everything moving forward. So that will be due September 1st, 2019. I am working with Ms. Montine at our school, and it's our goal this spring to have that timeline created. Once we have it, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to share it with you. And then after that would be our 2-year report, 5-year report. And then 2028, we're at it again.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Richards. For the items that are budgetary related, is that something that will be presented to us during our budget process?
I think we're going to have to come up with a timeline of how this will help. So I think I'll probably have to work with Dr. Mosley on how I'll respond or what we'll come up with. Okay. So I think your budget meetings and deliberations probably would help in responding to these.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Richards? Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I note that, sorry, Keith. I note that the 3rd bullet down deals with short and long-term plan to address ongoing technology. This is something I've talked about for quite a while that we've been on the board. I just want to ensure, it's a question. I don't know of any specific initiative within the strategic planning process that I've seen that addresses this. I've been asking for it for 3 years. So now that we're developing a strategic plan, and I would think that the strategic plan will have already been issued, right? I think it's due June, July, toward the end of the school year. So the strategic plan will already have been in place by the time you file whatever your next report is. So Ms. Porter, Dr. Mosley, could you please ensure that the strategic plan includes a strategic plan for IT, how we're going to manage data, all of it, the computers, the technology, the infrastructure. That has to be part of the strategic plan. I'm glad to see that NEASC, hints at it here, but I think we need to do a deep dive, and that deep dive has to be part of the strategic plan. And I'm expressing my concern now because I haven't seen anything so far as to a specific even breakout session just on that. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Any other questions? No. Ms. Oden?
I don't have a question, but I do want to compliment Mr. Richard, his administrative team, and his staff. In the commendations, 2 that struck me, the committee commented the work of the staff to go above and beyond to collaborate effectively despite the lack of dedicated time and resources was one commendation I thought spoke volumes for your staff, and the highly qualified teachers in their content areas. You have a lot of commendations in there that I'm sure you're very proud of, but those 2 struck me because I know how hard your staff works. So it's nice to be recognized by an outside source. And hopefully, we can get some of those budget things, because I think Dr. Mosley spoke very candidly about the fact that by a 1% or a 2% budget over the years, we're paying for it now, and we just have been cut to the bone, and we can't continue that way. So hopefully, we can help your dedicated staff move forward. Thank you. And thank you for all the work you do. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Dr. Mosley.
I just want to echo the same sentiments that Ms. Odom shared. Thank you to all of the teachers and the faculty that took the time out to participate in this. The visit started on Sunday, for those of you that don't understand the process. And so you had teachers volunteering their time away from their families and friends to come here and to be a part of the NEAS visit, along with the North. They just went through that visit this year too. So I wanted to personally thank the teachers, the administrators, and Keith for the work that you did in preparation. NEAS isn't a one-shot deal. It's exactly what you're doing over the last 5 to 7 years. So it's when I say snapshot of a lot of the different things that are going on in the district, and in this case in the school. I also wanted to thank the students that were there. They just did a wonderful job, and some of them are since gone, but certainly pass that on, and I appreciate all the time and work that the faculty put into it. So certainly we have some areas of improvement, but also too, I would just say that we do some pretty good things too. So those should be celebrated and highlighted as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Richards. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
No, you have
Good
an
luck.
early day. Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is new business. And first up is the approval of the 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 school year calendars. Dr. Mosley?
I'm sorry, I'm a little excited, only because I've always wanted to do this as a kid. And so I finally was able, in collaboration with the NTU and the administrator, I know that Keith left, we created a school calendar that is what I would consider pretty good. So there's a couple of things working here that I just wanted to point out to the school, to the public, but I also think it's a nice thing to point out because this is a 2-year calendar, which hasn't been done before. Please keep in mind that you'll see some significant changes coming up next year. Just take this year alone. So this year we came back on Wednesday for the Christmas break, right? Came back this Wednesday. And so the Wednesday coming, I believe the hardest day of the school year, it isn't the first day of school, but it's coming back after that break. Kind of fast forward a little bit. So next year during Christmas break, we would have been coming back on Thursday. So it's a Thursday, Friday, and then you have the weekend. So what we did, and I want to give kudos, I wish I could, she was here now, to Tara Kinsella for tweaking it, moving it around, keep doing multiple drafts, working with city to make sure that we didn't miss anything in terms, because there's an election season coming. So for what I'm proposing for the upcoming year is that we are going to start school one day earlier, and then we're going to get out one day later. In exchange for that, for the Christmas break, we'll have 2 full weeks off, which is a nice little added thing. So some of you may be celebrating, some of you may be saying, but I just want to put that out to you right now. The other thing, too, that's a little bit in the works, for the 2019-2020 school year, there's a New Hampshire presidential primary that has yet to be set for the state. We anticipate that the final date to be set no later than September of 2019. Therefore, we have a tentative date assigned for February 11th. And that may change. We just haven't been able to identify that date until the state has made their final decision. We've been in close communication with the city clerk. As soon as we get that date, we'll get that posted. But I think it's important that we get a 2-year calendar out so people can plan accordingly for their vacations or just time away, and for work schedules as well. So I wanted to say thank you to the NTU for their collaboration, and Adam, the leadership team, and Deb, and Gary, Pat, did I miss anyone? Okay, all right. Keith and Mark Lucas for their feedback on this. And again, you know, if you look at these calendars, they are extremely difficult to do. They are. It's not like checkers or nothing. It is hard to do because there is so many different competing appointments, elections, special elections that get moved around. And, you know, a real special person that really continues to do fabulous work. Tara Kinsella is really, you know, you can thank Mrs. Kinsella for all of the great things that happened for this calendar. So that's what's on the table right now. As I said before, we'll be able to get that February 11th date tentatively. That may change.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. So I am looking for a motion to approve both the school calendars for school year 2019-2020 and school year 2020-2021.
Second. Oh, okay.
Okay, discussion. Ms. Hohensee.
Thank you. I just wondered if, I'm looking at the first calendar, so if the tentative last day is the 16th, then the last day for the seniors would be the 9th, and tentatively the graduation would be on the following Saturday, or I'm just trying, for the benefit of the seniors, I just want to know what those tentative dates are. So I can see somebody asking me.
Asking you
What they, I mean, looking at the calendar, I just want to be able to know. It's tentative, but from looking at this, if the tentative last day for grades 1 to 11 is the 16th of June, then the seniors would be tentatively the 9th, 5 days shorter.
So
Well,
when is
no.
graduation? Is that what you're
Well,
asking?
graduation hasn't been set yet.
Because it's all tentative, but it says
Right.
down here that it's 180 days for students except 175 for seniors, so you subtract 5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what, well, I'm trying to figure out. So if the 16th is the tentative last day for grades 1 to 11, subtracting 5, you get June 9th. So would graduation tentatively be on the following weekend?
It could be or the next, depending on the availability of
Okay.
of the arena. We can't set that. They tell us. So it could be on that week or the following week.
Okay, and it's usually a Saturday, not a Sunday?
No, it could
Could be either?
We
we alternate?
try. I say we try. I have to be, and you know this, we have to be careful on what is going to be said in terms of the availability on graduation. And so we try to alternate through a Saturday or a Sunday. We try to do that the best we can. But ultimately, it is the event.
Availability.
That's it.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
the intent is to alternate, but sometimes we're just told the date.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Porter.
Having been a teacher, I know that in the past, the calendar has always come to the membership for approval, and I'm wondering if that's still what happens? Is that already happened?
Oh, I guess I passed it by the leadership piece to it. So if there's another vote that needs to happen, then certainly.
I know they used to do that. I'm just asking.
No.
We don't do that. So this has gone through the leadership already?
Mr. Marcoux, can you address this for us, please? I'm trying to read your facial expressions, and I'm unable.
Contractually, the only language in the contract is that the school district will consult the union. In the past, there have been various ways that's been done. We've had 2 calendars, pick which one you like, and then the superintendent brought it forward. We haven't had that method. I can't remember the last time we did it that way. We looked at the 2 calendars. The biggest complaints that we hear from the membership is around conference days. So we try to make suggestions, but there are so many days in the month of October and then November, and then there's holidays and there's elections, and then there's this and there's that, and there's just not enough days. So in my opinion, the superintendent has fulfilled his obligation and more under the contract.
Thank you. That's nice to hear, that and more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcoux, for being willing to come up and share that with us. All right. If there's no further discussion or questions, I'd like to move to a roll call.
Okay, on the motion, of the approval of the 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021 school year calendars. Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes?
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensie?
Yes?
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Excellent. I'm very excited to have 2 years in a row. And a big thank you to Ms. Kinsella. That was a big job. All right, so moving on to new business. The first item on new business is, I'm sorry, we are already on new business. The next item on new business is play-based kindergarten. Ms. Hohensie, you had asked that this be added to tonight's agenda?
Well, yes, because the state law went into effect in August of 2018. It's already in our schools, presumably, and the board needs an update on what that means, what play-based means compared to what we had before. Is it less desk work? Is it, what can the administration bring to us? I also wanted to know how that dovetailed with a half-day. Would a student who did a half-day be missing out on instruction and come in each day that much farther behind, or is there some way that they're accommodated so they don't feel like they're slipping if there is any instruction in the full day that they're not getting?
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hohensie. My understanding is that curriculum takes some time to develop. You can't have a law be passed in August and then 2 weeks later have it be implemented. As far as curriculum, it usually takes about 3 years. I believe that we're working pretty hard. But what I'd like to see is this move to curriculum, and then have curriculum give us an update. Ms. Porter?
Right, this is in the queue for curriculum to be discussed. I've only just become the curriculum chair recently. I've only had one meeting. I'm meeting with Dr. McKinney, and this has been part of our discussion, so it's definitely in the queue. It is something that will come up in curriculum.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver?
Can you tell us how far into the agenda? Is it 3 months away, 4 months away?
That's what we're working on now. It's not finalized. There are a number of items on them, and we're trying to get the time-sensitive ones first. So I will try to let you know as soon as I can, but it is definitely in the queue.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaufman?
I know, Ms. Porter, you might not remember, but we had a commitment from the administration that play-based kindergarten was going to be on the December agenda, and that meeting was canceled. So I would ask that you keep that in mind, that it was already committed to previously, and a date that's come and go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I will look forward to an update on that as soon as possible, I guess. All right. The next item on our new business is procedures and policies around the Nashua School District complaint process. It was my intention to discuss this in non-public. However, it has been brought to my attention that that would violate the right to know law because we are talking about the behavior of board members. So I brought this forward. I sent out a memo to the members of the board, which I will read so that we are fully in compliance. My memo to the board, dated January 22nd, 2009, states, "It is clear that despite our non-meeting with council last Monday, certain members are still unable to work cooperatively with others or to focus on the district's needs rather than their own personal agenda. To say that I am disappointed is an understatement. We have established policies regarding board member ethics and public complaints. Both categories have been violated by members this week. This is not only inappropriate, it also sets a poor example for the district. I invite all members to carefully review the following policies and adjust their behaviors accordingly. The policies that I attached to this memo are BBAA, Board Member Authority, BCA, Board Member Ethics, and BCAR, which is a repeat of Board Member Ethics, BGD, Board Review of Administration Procedures, KE, regarding public complaints, and KEB, public complaints about personnel. I also included in this packet a letter dated December 21st, 2006, that was sent to the district by Barrett Christina, the staff attorney for the New Hampshire School Boards Association. The letter was concerning public commentary at school board meetings. However, there was quite an interesting paragraph regarding the school board's right to set the agenda for its meeting, the right to ensure its meetings are conducted efficiently and effectively, and that any complaints about the performance of a school district employee are generally not initially within the board's purview. These matters are best brought to the administration through established, quote, chain of communication. In other words, public complaints are first brought to a school employee, then to the building principal, and then to the superintendent. So the reason that I felt the need to point this out was because there has been quite a bit in the paper as of late about our school board, and there has been quite a bit in our emails as of late from various school board members to each other, where we are not speaking politely to each other, where we are not speaking politely or respectfully about each other to the press or to other people, and that is a very clear violation of our ethics. Further, we have people who are launching investigations. We have a very clear policy. It says that things come to the board regarding complaints in a particular fashion. As of yet, we have not received a single letter from a parent regarding any complaints about disciplinary procedures, nor have we received a single letter to the board from a parent with a complaint about the way that the administration conducted the student elections. So in my opinion, and I have discussed this with Corporation Counsel, this is not a board matter. It shouldn't be individually pursued by board members, and it certainly shouldn't be emailed to everyone and their brother to discuss it in the public sphere, especially when we're talking about children. And I apologize to our student board members. I have a habit of calling everyone under 18 children, and I understand you're young adults, but you still have the privilege of privacy. And I believe it's part of our responsibility as board members to respect that and to guard that. So that's really all I have to say. I was intending to say it in non-public because it is not my practice to speak negatively about others, typically ever, but I felt that this was something that needed to be addressed. So, okay. Ms. Hohensee, I do not intend to have a back and forth where people feel the need to defend themselves and then go back. So if you have something constructive to say about the policies, I'm happy to hear it, but I am not going to entertain a back and forth where people talk personally about issues.
Thank you. I just want to point out this was not an investigation. I didn't investigate a single student. I filed a right to know request for information when I had trouble finding that information. Information that's required by law, procedures that are required by law. I took an oath not to find a majority vote to see whether we're following the law, but to uphold the law. It's an individual, not a collective duty. So I filed a right to know request. There was a family's privacy that was violated by the administration in this process. That issue hasn't come forward. That's another issue.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mosley?
Just on a technical piece, there's 5 minutes left. I have to take a vote.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Mosley, for letting us know. We do have a couple of items still on the agenda that are time sensitive, I believe. No, the contract negotiations are simply an update. Yes, and then we have another non-public issue regarding the superintendent, which I believe was requested by Mr. Kaufman. If we would like to have a motion to extend for half an hour so we can go into non-public, I will entertain it. If people would prefer to end early and table those items till the next meeting, I'm happy to entertain that as well. Mr. Kaufman.
Point of order, my request was for a public hearing, so we need not go into non-public on this. I would just ask that my request for a hearing be granted by the board.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was unclear. That is not the request regarding the superintendent that I was referring to.
And I honestly don't know what you've attributed to me then. So, okay. So I don't know what you've just attributed to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion?
Once again, Madam President?
Sorry, yes, Ms. Van Twyver, we made eye contact, so I would like to have you go.
Once again, you've shut us off from having us being able to express our comments again if you move to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Hohensee?
For confusion, I think in the future, we ought to have names attributed to these business items, new business items, whether it's Mr. Kaufman or someone else. It's very confusing. Play-based kindergarten should have had my name at the end of it. It would just help us understand whether we need to go forward with the meeting or we need to adjourn.
Okay. Thank you for that suggestion. I will keep it in mind for next month's agenda. Okay. Anyone else?
The move to adjourn has been made.
Okay.
Okay. On the motion to adjourn, Mrs. Oden?
No.
Ms. Raymond?
No.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
No.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes?
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
No.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4 noes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses.
Okay.
Motion, the meeting's adjourned at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you all for coming.